Hello everyone, welcome back to another Flesh and Blood video. It's time to finish up the set review for Part the Mistveil. Today we'll be taking a look at all of the non-Mystic traded cards. That's all the base Assassin, Ninja, Illusionist, as well as the generics and the expansion slot cards. With all that said, let's get started. Starting off with Assassin. Assassin gets 3 Majestics. I believe all classes get 3 Majestics this set. The first one is Bonds of Agony. This is a 0 cost, 1 power Assassin attack. It is 3 block and stealth. It also has, if you've played or activated 3 or more attack reactions this chain link, this gets plus 3 power, and when this hits a hero, look at their hand and choose a card. Search their hand, deck, and graveyard, and banish up to 3 cards with the same name as the chosen card. Then shuffle. Bonds of Agony is a way to rip full playsets of cards out of an opponent's deck. Best used on a card like CNC or Art of War, these big power cards, or even like a Blood Rush Bellow. Cards that are there to win your opponent a game. If there's a turn that they don't block you, especially if you're playing this, you know they might have something pretty good. You can just straight rip it out of their entire deck and also their hand. This card is really good. I wouldn't play new without it. I think even some Azuri builds might want to play this in consideration. Technically, Azuri's ability is a reaction. You can choose to banish a card that you wouldn't be able to swap in, which means you can still use it as a reaction for Bonds of Agony. Of course, you do have to banish a card in your hand, which is not always that good, but you can do it. So this could be a very strong tool for any stealth using assassin. Persuasive Prognosis is the other assassin 1 power blue majestic. It also costs 0, and it also blocks for 3. It says stealth, and when this hits a hero, banish the top card of their deck. Then look at their hand and banish a card with the same color as the banished card. Whenever this banishes attack action or any action card, not attack, any action, you gain 1 life. This card is another effect that lets you rip cards out of your opponent's hand. New is a deck that doesn't do the most damage, but has strong disruptive effects to prevent your opponent from doing a lot of damage. This is an effect that I wouldn't say is as strong as Bonds of Agony, but can still be a way to take cards from your opponent's hand and gives you information of what they're going to play against you, especially if it's a deck that's going to go wide. You know exactly how wide they're going to go and how much damage they'll deal before you decide what attacks you're going to block. Very strong card. Definitely won't play new without this one, and I think actually this one is probably better than Bonds of Agony in Azuri. Definitely expect this one as well, because I think both are very strong. The final Majestic that Assassin gets this set is called Just a Nick. This is a 0 cost red attack reaction, and it is 3 block. It has a choose one or both. You give an attack action of base power 1 or less plus 5 power, or you give an attack with stealth. When this hits a hero, banish the top card of their deck. There are no contract cards with 1 power, so this can't be used on them. But there are definitely a lot of stealth cards with 1 power. Every blue stealth card has 1 power. Blue, I think it's Sneak Attack from Outsiders has 1 power if you wanted to play that. And there are several decent commons that have 1 attack. New is a deck that plays a lot of them. Of course, it's a deck about blues. If all the good stealth attacks are blue, that's great for this card. So this does get a lot of value from both of its effects very often. 0 for 5 is really strong, especially when this can even pump more, offsetting like a Bonds of Agony or a Double Team, cards that you're definitely going to include inside of new. So this card is, I think, a must play. It even helps you with that fatigue and banishment by also giving you a way to banish an extra card off the top. So really strong tool for new. Assassin gets 3 rares this set. Each class has a card with different named but the same effect. So Assassin gets Art of Desires. There's Body, Soul, and Mind. Body is red, Soul is yellow, blue is Mind. They fit the normal color conventions, but they have an effect change depending on the color. All 3 classes have something similar. So Art of Desire is a 0 for 3/2/1 3-block stealth attack. When it hits a hero, you banish the top card of their deck, and then if you banish a card of the same color as the Art of Desire, you draw a card and gain a life. This card is pretty strong, especially in red and blue, since that's the colors most decks are built of. Yellows probably won't see any play inside of most Assassin decks, of course, unless you're named Codex of Frailty, or you're very niche like Remembrance or Spreading Plague. But Art Desire Body and Art Desire Mind are very strong. I think you might see Mind in a few decks, since hitting a blue just replaces itself, as well as it is a blue. But I think you could see Body in some decks as well. I think they're decent options, so expect to see them at some point. Bonds of Attraction is I'm not going to say the stat lines anymore. Every stealth card in this set is a 0 for 3 at red, 2 at yellow, 1 at blue. So I'm not going to say the stat line. And every card for Assassin we'll be looking at is that same stat line. They're just some different attack. And they all have stealth. So Bonds of Attraction will, on hit of a hero, banish the top card of their deck and a card from their graveyard. If this card banishes 2 cards of the same color, you will gain a life, which is pretty good. I don't think it'll see the most play, but getting to banish cards from a graveyard is strong. It's better than Bonds of Memory, which is a common card that needs you to banish something of the same name. So I think this one is a little stronger, allowing you to do any color. Double Trouble is the last rare. This is the only stealth card in the set that doesn't natively banish a card on hit. Instead, it has the effect of if you've played or activated 2 or more attack reactions this chain link, this gets +2 power, and when this hits a hero, banish the top 2 cards of their deck. This is an incredibly strong card, probably the best rare or common stealth attack in the set. This is a deck that you're going to be using a lot of reactions, so new, great for that. She has so many in Mystic and even some in Base Assassin. Of course, this is stealth, so you can spike it, you can Razor's Edge it, and as long as you do 2, it'll get +2, making this a 0 for 5. The banish doesn't have any utility from it since you weren't gaining any life, but even still, this is a 0 for 5. That will definitely see play. Even in blue, because at blue, it's a blue 0 for 3. That, hey, it's stealth, and hey, it is 1 base power for your Jestinic and other synergy effects like looking for a scrap. So, Double Trouble, one of the best cards you can play. For the commons, I'm going to run through them pretty quickly because they're not super interesting. Bonds of Memory, as I already said, is very similar to Bonds of Attraction. An on hit to banish the top card of that hero's deck and a card in their graveyard, and if it banishes a card of the same name, you gain a life. Not too strong, but I think could see play at some point inside of Blitz if you were going to play new in Blitz, but I don't think this will be a very strong tool for constructed play. Desires of Flesh Impulsive Desire and Mind's Desire are all very similar. They're simply just normal stealth attacks that banish the top card on hit and gain you a life when you banish a certain card. Desires of Flesh gains you a life when you banish an attack. Impulsive Desire gains you life when you banish a reaction or instant. And Mind's Desire gains you life when you banish a non-attack action. The final assassin card this set is called Pick to Pieces. This is a standard stealth stat line card that, if you've played or activated a reaction this chain link, gets +1, and damage dealt this turn can't be prevented this way. This is actually a really strong card and probably the best common in the set for Assassin. Just Pick to Pieces blue is a 0 for 2 natively with that cause, so just a nit can pump it to 7. This is a tool that'll help you beat a lot of the ward that you will see now, especially mainly from the illusionists, because Assassin can struggle versus some of those hard controlling decks. So Pick to Pieces being unpreventable is great, as well as a 0 for 4 for the red version is pretty nice as well. Expect to see this card will be one of the best. Next, let's move on to Illusionist, starting with the weapon. We did talk about this one last week, considering that it was pretty important to discuss with the hero, but we'll read it again now since it is a base Illusionist card. Cosmo, Scroll of Ancestral Tapestry, is a two-handed Illusionist weapon scroll, and it has 2 effects. During your turn, auras you control with ward are weapons with base power equal to their ward and have once per turn pay a resource to attack. And auras you control with 1 or more +1 counters get go again. This weapon is seemingly a fairer version of Prism's original Luminaris. However, it does have the downside of needing you to pay 1 to attack. That isn't the biggest downside, considering this is a set based on blues and you'll be playing a lot of blues. But considering that some of your auras have some pretty high wards, you'll be able to come in for a whole lot of damage, especially since ones with +1 counters have go again. This is great with Enigma's own ability, since you can make a Spectral Shield with a counter for free. Well, for 3 chi, but then attack with it for free, and then that still has go again, so you can do some other things. So Cosmo is a pretty good card. I think you'll definitely see it inside of Enigma. However, I do think that some people will try to play some of the older weapons so they can attack with their Spectra auras instead of just their ward auras. I think you'll still play a few ward auras in that type of list, but we will have to see as the meta develops. Moving on to the Majestics, 10,000 Year Reunion is an 8-cost action. It is an aura and it is 3 block. You can remove 3 +1 counters from among auras you control instead of paying the cost of 10,000 Year Reunion, as well as 10,000 Year Reunion has Ward 10. If you get the ability to swing with this, it's absolutely insane. Of course, it doesn't have go again, so you will need to either play it as an instant or give it go again. But if you can get a turn where you can keep this in play, maybe even give it a counter so it gets go again when you attack with it, you'll be threatening a lot of damage to your opponent. A pretty strong card. I don't think you'll see it in main boards, but I think one you'll definitely see in a lot of sideboards. Rage Spectre is a 2-cost blue action aura. It is 3 block. When it enters the arena, if you control no other illusionist auras, you gain an action point. And during your turn, this has Ward 6, but otherwise it has Ward 1. This is a strong aggressive tool. With Cosmo and a blue, you can just play this and then swing with it for 6 on a 2-card hand. Of course, barring any other illusionist auras you have in play, because this one will only give you the action point if it's your only one. So pretty decent. I think you'll definitely play it inside of Enigma in pretty much every deck, even if you never play it out. It's a blue block 3, so it's great. Of course, having Ward 1 on an opponent's turn is pretty weak, but just the power it can threaten with 6 on your turn is great. Restless Coalescence is a yellow illusionist instant aura. When it enters, you can move any number of +1 counters from auras you control onto this, and once per turn, you can remove a counter from this to make a Spectral Shield. It also has Ward 2. So this card can be a free aura you can play to swing with Cosmo, and since you can move auras from other auras onto this, it can have Go Again, which is pretty good. Other than that, it's a bit of extra health if you ever need it, since you can cash in counters on it to make into Spectral Shields. And it has Ward 2 itself, so you can think of it just as a 2 block, which is a little weak, but it is an instant, which is nice. So I think this card definitely will see some play, since it's just very flexible. Moving on to the Illusionist rares. Ancestral Etchings is a 3-block action that puts counters on an aura you control with Ward, dependent on color. Red is 3, yellow is 2, blue is 1. And then if you control a Spectral Shield, you can play Ancestral Etchings as an instant. I think the blue version of this will definitely see play as a blue block 3 that can give something a counter, which means it'll be great with Cosmo. But I could see the red in some more aggressive versions as well. Essence of Ancestry is the color-specific card that I was talking about earlier. They are 0-cost auras that block 3 and all have Ward 2. And when they leave the arena, if you control no illusionist auras, the next time you will be dealt damage by whatever color type of card, this turn you prevent it. So Body will prevent the next red source, Soul the next yellow, and Mind the next blue. I think Body could be a good card to bring into Kano, since into Kano you can blow this up and then prevent the next red source of damage, which is great. I think the blue, though, could just see some natural play, even though its effect isn't the best. It's a blue block 3 that has Ward 2, so it's really not all too terrible. The final illusionist rare is Haunting Spectre. This is a 2-cost, 2-block illusionist aura. When it leaves the arena, you make a Spectral Shield, and then if you control no other illusionist auras, you put a +1 counter on it. The red has Ward 4, yellow Ward 3, and blue Ward 2. I think this card's okay. The main thing bringing it down for me is that it's a 2-block. However, it does give you some nice protection if you do end up actually playing it. And if it's your only aura, when it dies, you'll have no other auras. You'll get a shield with a counter, which means you can swing with it for free going into your turn, which is pretty great. But even then, if you don't have an aura, or if you don't get the chance to, like if you have another aura in play, this is still 5 health at red, since you will make a shield no matter what. So this one is a pretty nice piece of protection if you can get around that 2-block in your deck. Moving on to the commons. Sigil of Solitude is a 0-cost action that at the start of your turn, if you control another illusionist aura, you destroy it. It is 2-block, and the color depends on the amount of ward. Red is 4, yellow is 3, blue is 2. I don't think this card is all that good, but I suppose if you could have a turn where you give several ward auras a +1 counter and can play them as instants, which your new shoes as well as your Mystic Illusionist Transcend, if you stack them the right way and have the right hand, could work out. This could come in for 5 with Go Again, but then you'd have to destroy it at the start of your turn, which would be fine because if your opponent does swing at you, you can just pop this instead. So I think this card does have its uses, I just don't think it's the strongest. Single-Minded Determination is a 2-cost aura with 3 block. When it enters the arena, if you control no other illusionist auras, you get counters on it depending on color. Red is 3, yellow is 2, blue is 1, and then it has Ward 2 base. I really like this card in blue because if you can protect it going into your next turn, it's a 3-power aura, as well as it's a blue block 3 if you don't end up playing it. But I could see the reason to want to play the red as well, having it be a 2 for 5 if you can protect it. Solitary Companion is a 0-cost illusionist action aura. When it enters the arena, if you control no other auras, you make a Spectral Shield, as well as it has 2 base block. This card, I think, is a little weak. Its color is dependent on its ward, just like most other of these cards, where it will have 3, 2, or 1, since it's 0 cost. The blue seems very weak to me, even though it's 2 ward for free. It requires you to not have any other auras in play, which, even though that's a restriction on a lot of these other cards, it just seems a little weak to just make a Spectral Shield. So sure, it's a strong 1-card hand if you have this red version, but it's just not anything all too impressive. Spectral Manifestations is a 2-cost action and it has 2 block. It has you make a Spectral Shield token, and then if you control no other illusionist auras, you'll put counters on it depending on this card's color. Red is 3, yellow is 2, blue is 1. I think this card's pretty nice in blue, although a 2-cost attack for, I guess, technically 2 for free, which sometimes it can be 3 mana, is pretty bad, so this card in blue isn't the strongest. But I think this card in red actually has some legs. If you can open with it, it's a free, or I guess still 2 mana, but it's a 2 for 4 with Go Again, that if you can protect that 1 shield will be 4 every turn. So I think this card actually does have some legs in red, and you might see it. The final illusionist card in the set is called Vengeful Apparition. This is a 0-cost illusionist action aura with 3 block. When it leaves the arena, if you control no other illusionist auras, you can play your next aura this turn with cost dependent on color or less, as though it were an instant this turn, and if you do, it enters with a +1 counter. All of these have Ward 1. Red is 2 or less cost, yellow is 1 or less, blue is 0 or less. This card has some pretty nice synergies with some other auras. The blue version does let you play Sigil of Solitude, and since Vengeful Apparition only triggers if you have no illusionist auras, you don't have to worry about the sigil blowing up at the start of your turn. So you can have that 1 for 5 attack with Go Again coming in. But the red version is pretty nice, letting you put into play your red Single-Minded Determination, or something like your red Haunting Spectre. Even Rage Spectre with the +1 counter could be massive. If we look up to the red, or the, not red, but the other illusionist auras, the mystic ones, you can see that Waxing Spectre could be decent if you've pitched a blue that same turn, which you might do. But Haze Shelter is one you might want to consider, since that one can also be a 1 for 5 if you've pitched a blue. So, honestly, I do think that red Vengeful Apparition could be a pretty strong tool, because if you can have a turn where your opponent swings into it and they break it but don't break any of the auras you bring in with it, you could have a pretty strong crackback turn. Mainly if an opponent is only going to play 1 attack at you, like if you're against a Guardian, you can just take the full force of an attack, prevent 1 with the Apparition, get an aura into play for free, and then take a wide turn against them. And I think that could be pretty strong. In all, I think the Illusionist does get some pretty nice cards this set. Definitely a good base core. Illusionist is the one class in the game that does not have a normal, non-traded hero, But honestly, these cards, if we ever do get one of those illusionists, could really help them. I think some of them are definitely pretty useful. Now let's move on to the final bit of main class cards from Part the Mistveil. Ninja. Ninja's new weapon is called Tiger Taming Kakra. It is a 2-cost, two-handed staff with 2 power, and it has Go Again, which is pretty good. When this attacks, your next crouching tiger you play this combat chain gets +1, which, since tigers have 0 power, I mean, hey, it gets them rolling. This is a 2 for 3 with Go Again, in theory, similar to the Searing Emberblade, that does require some setup. The advantage of this is that it always has Go Again, so if you have a turn where you can't make a tiger, similar to a turn where you might not have any Draconic Chain Links to play before it, this one actually does get the Go Again, which could be pretty useful. I don't know if it's stronger than Harmonized Kadachi. However, for a deck that wants to use tigers, you won't always have a pump. Even if you make a tiger off of something, like if you're Zen and you block with your shoes to make a tiger, you might not have another pump for it. So this can still let you come in for 1, which is very nice for all of the ninja masks. I really do like this weapon. And since it's base ninja, that's pretty cool too, since we could see it in some of the other ninjas in the future. Mask of Wizened Whiskers is a new ninja head equipment. It's a 1-block blade break with when this defends, put a card with combo from your graveyard on the bottom of your deck. A decent recursive tool, but won't really see much play inside of Constructed. Moving on to the M's, Chase the Tail is a 1 for 4 with 3 block. It has combo for when this attacks. If Crouching Tiger was the last attack this combat chain, this gets Go Again. And your next Crouching Tiger you play gets +3. Actually, a really strong card. One of the better cards you can actually play, because if you can make 2 tigers, you can swing with your Kakra for 2, play one of the tigers, then play a Chase the Tail for your remaining resource from a blue you probably pitch for the Kakra, and then come in with that last tiger for 3, letting you have, yes, it's technically 4 cards, but if you had 2 tigers or could gen 2 tigers, a 2-card 10, which really isn't bad considering you had to find a way to make 2 tigers. 1 is easy, I will say, because your shoes exist. 2 different shoes exist that make tigers. But possibly if your hand was a chi and another blue, you could pitch the chi to Zen, find this, get your tiger, pitch the other blue and another tiger you got off your shoes. You get a pretty decent 2-card hand. So even in situations though where you have multiple cards, Chase the Tail's insane, since you'll be able to make tigers a lot easier with more cards, making this a pretty much 1 for 7 with the only restrictions of needing 2 tigers for it to be a 1 for 7. That's really strong. Maul is a 0 for 3. This one is another choose 1 or both, or a 0 for 3 block yellow, but it is a 0 for 3. It is actually pretty similar to Just the Nick, pumping up an attack with base power 1 or less, this time by +3. But if you target a Crouching Tiger, it gains, when this hits, create 2 Crouching Tigers in your Banish Zone, and you may play them this turn. This card is good on turns where you already have a pump going, something like a Roar of the Tiger or Zen's own legendary instant. But it's okay. Some of the blues you're going to be playing aren't the strongest, but a 0 for 3 reaction isn't anything to laugh at. I think Maul definitely will see play, just you won't see it at 3 copies a lot of the time. On the turns you can gen these two tigers, sometimes you just don't have a pump, which makes them a little weak. Something like on a turn with, say, like a chase the tail, it could be strong because it turns one tiger into two more. Of course, one of them won't directly get pumped because you have two extra, but I guess maybe if you didn't cockroach the first one, you could all have them come in for some damage. So Maul is a decent card that can give you some extra tigers on a wide turn and pump in some extra damage. The final Ninja Majestic is Territorial Domain. This is a 0-cost blue D-React with 2 block, and it says, while this is defending, if you've created a Crouching Tiger this turn, get +3. This card's good with those Mystic Ninja shoes that make a Crouching Tiger when they defend, but it is so unoften that you will make a Tiger on an opponent's turn that this card does feel a little weak. Of course, other than that one interaction. But in that situation, it is a 0 for 5 block that's blue. So I suppose it's playable, but you probably still won't be playing it. Aspect of Tiger is the color shifted card for Ninja. They are 3 block, 0 cost attacks with 3, 2, and 1 power, of course. When they attack, if a card of their color was the last attack in the combat chain, they get go again, and you create a Crouching Tiger in your Banish Zone that you can play this turn. And of course, they have combo. This card is very strong. The red off of any of your other red attacks, giving you a bonus Tiger. This one's great off of a Chase the Tail. I will say that. If you can only have one Tiger off of your shoes, per se, you can Cockra, swing with the Tiger, swing with your Chase the Tail, and Chase the Tail doesn't require your next attack to be a Tiger, it's just your next Tiger. So then you can play the aspect of Tiger Body off of your Chase the Tail, make it second Tiger, and then come in with that for 3. This card will definitely see some play. Even in Phi, I think this card might have legs, since Tiger can get pumped by Shukos, Tiger can get pumped by any few of the other Phi pumps, not all of them, but still a good card in that. I don't think it'll see much play in Katsu, unless you're playing Tigers in that, but oh well. The blue might also have some legs, since it is a 0-cost blue block 3 with combo. Ooh, although it's only 1 base power, so maybe not. I guess if a Ninja deck wants to play looking for scrap, it could be a decent tool for that, but the blue could see some play. I just think the red's a lot better. Moving on to some reprints, I will not be stating what the reprints do because they are reprints. Ninja gets cheaped out on a rare because Key Unleashed is a reprint. I think it's good that it's in the sealed environment though, because I think this card does make sense for the Zen, but it's a reprint. Ninja gets cut a rare. Why do you do this to every deck I play LSS? You cut Brute cards in heavy hitters. You're cutting Ninja cards now. Big sad. I guess you could say it's alright because they got 2 new rares, right? Like every class gets 3 rares and they got 1 reprint. But no, Ninja only gets 1 new rare this set because Blessing of Ki is also a reprint. Yay. I'm so glad my heroes lose out on cards because of reprints. This isn't even particularly a good card. It's a 1 for 3 you have to wait on. Yes, it gives you a Tiger that gets pumped, but it's pretty bad. I wish these were just new cards. Analysis keeps doing it to the classes that I play, because Assassin doesn't have this, Illusionist doesn't have it, Brute did last set. You know what else did this set? Ninja. Probably next set, when we get Wizard, we're going to see Wizard reprints. That might be a little more warranted, but why reprint the old stuff when they could just print new versions like they did with Aether Dart, right? Aether Dart's just a better zap. They could do that. Why give us these reprints of these not good cards? This card I don't even think is that good in draft and sealed, to be honest. Maybe it's okay, but why? However, we do get some new commons, and I say some because there are also common reprints. I'm going to go over them first. Flex Claws is a reprint. It's a 1/4 at red that on hit makes a tiger in your banish zone. And Pouncing Key is a 0/3 that gets +1 and go again. Why not put Growl in this set? That's something I just thought of. Why not reprint Growl? Why not give us red Tiger Eye Reflexes? There are 2 Tiger cards that aren't in the set that are actually good. Tiger Eye Reflexes, we don't have in red because it was only yellow and blue in the Ira deck. That would have been great to put in this set. Instead of Blessing of Key, this should have been a Tiger Eye Reflex set, with the red one being new. And Growl being a 0/3 that pumps your next Tiger, probably should have been Untamed instead. I'm glad Untamed is here, because that's actually a pretty nice new card. But it should have just been Growl, and I don't know why it wasn't. We already have Growl red, but I kind of want Growl blue. So, oh well, we get 2 more Ninja reprints in a set that probably shouldn't have these reprints. I guess you might say, well, this set is going to be a main set printed a lot in Japan. They don't have the old Tiger cards. Okay, I guess, but they're still going to have to buy codexes from Outsiders and stuff from Dynasty. They're going to have to get black text from Dynasty anyway for new. So they're going to have to get Dynasty. I'm pretty sure all the Tiger stuff was in there. So, like, they're going to have to get Dynasty anyway. I don't understand it, man. But let's go on to the new cards. Biting Breeze is the 1 less power, 1 less cost version of Flex Claws. It's a 0/3 that on hit gives you a Tiger in your banish and lets you play it this turn. It only blocks 2, but it's a head jab. That's perfectly fine. This one could also see some play in Fi, I think. Same as the aspect of Tiger Body, because making a Tiger doesn't seem all too bad in that deck, especially if you're on like an Art of War turn. This comes in for a breakpoint of 4, and then if it actually does hit, you get a Tiger for 1. Breed Anger is a 1/4. It has a combo of when this attacks, if Crouching Tiger was the last card, this gets go again, and you make a Tiger. Doesn't need to hit to make the Tiger. On a turn you're making a bunch of Tigers, you probably have a pump, so this can be another extender to give you another thing. Pretty good, a 1/4. A different version of like a Mounting Anger or a Bittering Thorns. Doesn't need to hit, but requires you to have a pump for it to actually be useful. I think it's okay. You could see it at some point. It also blocks 3 since it's a card with combo. And then the last ninja card in the set, Untamed, is a 1/4 with 2 block. This one is actually a Bittering Thorns / Mounting Anger. It is a, when it attacks, your next Tiger gets +1, 1/4 with go again. Pretty good. I like it. This one also could see play. I really like these new Tiger cards at common they put in this set. In fact, I like all of the new cards for Ninja except Territorial Domain, because that card's just not good. But I just don't like that we're getting so many reprints. Again, I understand why they're here, because, you know, Japan might not have all of this old stuff, and this, I would say, is sort of the better old stuff. I think Pouncing Key is pretty good, and I think Key Unleash is good, but, like, I don't know, man. They're going to have to buy Dynasty anyway to get Tiger Swipe and Main State of Tiger and Black Tex and all of the Contract Majestics. So, like, okay. And if they're in Everfest and not Dynasty, which I'm pretty sure they're in Dynasty, if they're in Everfest, well, they need to buy Everfest to get the illusionist auras anyway, the majestic and rare ones. So, like, no matter what, they're going to have to go back to an expansion set that would have Tiger cards in it. So just give us new Tiger cards, man. I don't know why these are even here. Finally, let's take a look at some of the generics cards in the set. Stonewall Gauntlet is a brand new generic legendary, trying to become a new side grade, just like Balance of Justice was. And I think this one does its job pretty well. Stonewall Gauntlet gives, when it defends an attack with power greater than its base, all opposing attacks this combat chain get +1 or get -1 power this combat chain, which of course it can end just by ending the chain, to be fair. But if it's a pump that requires the whole chain, something like a Spreading Flames or a Head Leads the Tail, this cuts the whole chain off. And it can be a 2-block versus an attack with increased power because it will shrink it down by 1, which is pretty nice. It's a 1-block one block blade break. And, you know, it has its use. I think people should be picking this one up. I don't know if it'll see play everywhere, but there are some metas where it could see some play. Rowdy Locals is a blue 0 for 2 with 3 block. It has, if this card is defended by an attack action, this gets +2. And when this hits a hero, discard a card. And if you do, they discard a card. Pretty strong. You do have the discard, which does suck sometimes, but normally you'll be ending your chain with this. It's a blue 0 block that costs 0, so maybe Katsu might want it. And it's a 0 for 4 if your opponent does have to block it with an attack action, so it does have its upsides. Don't get me wrong. I think if we ever get a deck that wants to discard its own cards, this could be strong. But as of now, it's probably just a little niche that might disrupt someone at some point. The Weakest Link is a 2 for 6 that blocks 3 at red. When it hits a hero, you look at their hand and choose a card without base block, and if you do, they discard it and you draw a card. This is a popper that can be interaction for instance, which, now that I'm thinking about it again for this video, is better than I originally thought. This card is a good popper versus the decks you'd want poppers, which are the Illusionists. Illusionist Prism has a bunch of instants. You can discard Figments, you can discard Illusionist Auras, as well as it's 2 for 6. So it can pop not Triumph, I think is the one that lowers power, which is good. It's like same as CNC Statline. As well as Enigma will be playing some instants. Some of them cost resource, so they'd be harder to play. So this can actually get them. A pretty strong card that I think actually will see some play and might hold a little bit of value. No other deck this card is that strong against, really only Illusionist, but hey, it's alright. And you can swap it in if you're Azuri, so that might be a reason to want it as well. Prismatic Leyline is a 0 for 0 cost yellow. It gives your next red attack +1, your next yellow attack +2, and your next blue attack +3. This card does seem a little niche. However, technically it's a 0 for 6 if you can play all 3. Most of the time, you'll be playing a red and a blue, so this can be thought of as a 0 for 4. This is a great card for the ninjas, since they do play a variety of colors. I've been playing a yellow version of Whelming Gustwave in my Katsu decks, as well as Phi plays things like a bunch of reds, some blues, and Salt the Wound. So this can be a 0 for 6 inside of Phi, and all Phi gets some pretty nice tools this set, so do watch for him. This card being one of them, I think is pretty strong. Doesn't pump up your Tigers, but it's still alright. Even in someone like New plays a lot of blues. This makes them 0 for 4s because they're probably 1 power. but even something that isn't, like a surgical extraction, goes to 7. So really, this card is actually very strong, and I know I will be picking up a playset of this as early as I can, because when people realize how strong this card is, as much as I think it is, it'll definitely shoot up. Moving on to the rares and commons, we'll go over these pretty fast, but I think some of them are really decent, and I will be talking about them. Blanche is the new best popper in the game. It's a 3 for 7, which means that you can pop things like Triumph from Prism and into Prism and all the new Mystic Heroes where color matters. Blanche can shut that out if you do end up hitting them. It's a 7, so it's a good break point. One of the best sideboard options you have if your deck doesn't already play a ton. So, like Brutes, they don't play as many sideboard options. They play a lot of like tech cards for certain matchups. At least I do when I play Brute. And a deck like maybe Ninja could fit this in. I think Fi could fit this in for certain matchups. Also against Fi, this card's great into Fi because all their cards lose red. Red sometimes matters, something like a Blaze Headlong. So could get them as well. I wouldn't play the other colors, only the red, but really good. Emissary of Moon only comes in red. And this and the next two cards are sort of like budget only one choice E-strikes. Emissary of Moon has you may put a card on the bottom from your hand, and if you do, you draw. Tides, if you do the same thing, gets +2, and Wind gets go again. They're all right. Putting a card from your hand on the bottom is a may, so you don't have to. And some of them are stronger than others. But like, if you have E-Strike, it's way better. And none of them will see play, much play because of that. But in Limited, I think they could see some play. Like Emissary of Tides is actually pretty decent in Limited. Same as Wind. I think Moon falls a little behind, but some decks can give it go again in this format, so it could be okay. You can also put like Tigers and like Slithers on the bottom, so that's pretty nice. Gravekeeping is a 1 for 5 at red that when this attacks a hero, you can banish a card from their graveyard. Good into Recursion, but mainly will only be played inside of new in limited formats, since a 1 for 5 that can give you a card to play later is pretty nice. Battlefront Bastion is a card we had the blue version before from the KO, I think they're Armory decks, the KO Armory deck. But now we have the red and yellow version. I think the blue version stands to still be the best one, but if Icelander and Bullander ever comes back, the red one will probably see play in that, since it's a 3 for 7 that blocks 3. Fact-finding mission is a 2 for 6 that when it hits, you can look at their face-down cards in Arsenal or equipment. Not the best. Good in the format, but not really that strong in general. Nibble Strike is getting a reprint. I think it's fine if they reprint commons, because that's the core of a set that every hero can play. So it's not cutting into actual class cards, because no one looks at generics. Of course, generic Majestics people will look at, but no one's going to like randomly look at like Battlefront Bastion or Blanche and think this card is insane. Like, or think like they need to reprint this card. Like, no one's going to look at Blanche 5 years later and say this card needs a reprint, or this card like doesn't need a reprint or something, right? Because like people will have it. It's a rare or a common, or it's a generic. I mean, like it's a random generic. No deck in specific plays it, and they're just like extra. Like most generics are pack filler. Like Fact Finding Mission will not see play in anything other than limited in this format. Same thing as the Emissaries. Probably Gravekeeping, but I think this card actually could see some play. Like some commons will see play, but the ones that got reprinted are ones that will see play, like Nimble Strike and Nimblism. Maybe not Wounding Blow, but I think this was played at some point. But not like actual class cards that are generally a lot better than generics because they're specific to a class. Those getting reprinted feels really bad, but generics getting reprinted does feel pretty nice. Water the Seeds is a new generic. This one gets... when it attacks, gives your next attack of base power 1 or less +1. This one's really good, especially in limited, since it can pump up your daggers on new, since it's any of your next attack this combat chain, which they all have 1 base power. And it comes in for a blue as well, since you can pitch a blue, play this, swing with dagger. That's pretty nice. Maybe sees play in like Fi, but if I'm paying 1, I want something that's a little stronger than 3. I'd want maybe 4 +1 instead of 3 +1, but it is a guaranteed +1 instead of like bittering or mounting that need to hit. So this one could see some play, but I don't think it's the best card you can play. Definitely a budget option. Wounding Blow is a reprint. Evasive Leap is a new card, but it's really just for limited. It's a 0 for 3 generic D-React. No bonus effect. Worse than Sink and Fate. The yellow is worse than Springboard Somersault. These won't see play in Constructed. They're just here for limited. And then a Nimblism reprint, because they reprinted Nimble Strike, and it's good for 2 of the 3 classes. I'm surprised no Looking for Scrap reprint, because I think that would have been a great generic in this set, since Ninja and Assassin, again, can use them pretty well. But I think even Illusionist could, if they wanted, play a Nimble Strike just as a 1 for 4. Like, it doesn't feel terrible to Nimblism Nimble Strike as an Illusionist if your hand allows it, but Looking for Scrap would straight remove that if you wanted to do it. Of course, it's not for Illusionist in this generic slot. Illusionist cards would be more like the Evasive Leap or like the Blanche or the Battlefront Bastion, but it's still possible. I think it's a good suite of generics for a limited format. But again, Prismatic Leyline, real good. Look for Weakest Links. I think those could be good for some matchups. And definitely look for Blanches, because I think that card will definitely be one of the better rares in the set. Finally, we need to take a look at the last of the set, the expansion slot cards. The expansion slot cards this set are a lot more specific than some of the older ones. We saw some general generic good cards in the older ones, but this time around we have a lot of cards that are built for literally just one deck. In fact, I'd probably say only one of these cards is designed for multiple decks, but it's designed for one deck because there's only one playable hero in the format for that class. So a bit more specific cards here, but that can sometimes still be fine. Let's start by looking at Visit the Gold Main Estate. This is a blue 1 cost action that is a Victor specialization. It has you create a gold token, and then if you control 3 or more, you make that many might tokens, and it has go again. A strong card for Victor that lets you set up some pretty big damage. However, it being a non-attack action does hurt, since hitting it in a clash could cause you to lose it. I think that could be a worth it payoff. A more seasoned Victor player could tell you if that's good or bad. I am not too much of a seasoned Victor player, but I do think if you do play Victor, you might want to pick this one up. Also, Victor seems kind of terrible in this format, so this card will probably be pretty cheap, so you can pick him up really easily. Visit the Golden Anvil is a 0 cost warrior action. It is an Olympia spec, and it is a 3-block blue. As an additional cost to play this, you can destroy X gold you control, and then you equip that many weapons and or equipment from your inventory. This sort of fits that theme of re-equipping some of your lost equipment which I think is pretty nice. And it fits the gladiator theme, picking up weapons around the arena that other fighters had. But is this card really all that strong? Your weapons generally won't be destroyed. I don't think you're going to play a parry blade. I guess if you're playing a shield, you can use the shield and then equip a second sword later, which could be nice. If you are playing multiple helmets, which you probably will be, say you're playing a Crown of Providence and a Balance of Justice, you can use one to block and then or sack it to draw and then equip the other for some more block. That's pretty good. Warrior gloves, I guess you could play both defensive gloves and start with Iron Song and then switch to, or start with the temper ones and then switch to the battle worn ones. That could be good. You're not doing legs because you're playing Olympia, you're playing Dynamos. I guess unless you're using a shield, in which I'd still play Dynamos because you're going to equip a second shield with this. And then, or a second weapon with this, in which Dynamos will work. And then chest is courage, which is fine. 3 block, and then you go into a tunic. That could be nice. Tunic that late, though, might be a little weak. But I guess this card, you can spend like 4 gold to get you like 6 health back. Or 3 gold to get 6 health back. But it also doesn't have go again. And it's not helping you win. It's helping you stay alive, which I guess is helping you win a little bit, but helping you win, I think, would be pushing through damage or a strong hit effect, not theoretically giving you more armor. So I think this card's very weak, but I could be proven wrong. Supercell is a blue 2-block mechanologist action that costs X. You put X steam counters on X target hyperdrivers you control, and then create a hyperdriver with X steam counters. If X was 3 or greater, you can shuffle a construct nitro mechanoid from your banish zone into your deck. The thing about this card is I believe to pay 3 into it, you need to have already controlled 3 hyperdrivers because you would need 3 targets, which means you're making a 4th hyperdriver. So on a turn that you would mechanoid, this would replace your mechanoid and then let your drivers stay in play for 3 extra turns, which is pretty strong, I will say. And it lets you shuffle back in a mechanoid if you boosted one earlier. This, of course, is a max card. You're not playing this in anyone other than max. And I think it could be one you do play. It only blocks 2, which does suck. But if you do end up banishing your 3 mechanoids, could be a great tool, especially in the matchups though that are going to try to fatigue you because you're a mech. Those matchups need you to get your mechanoid out, and this can help you a lot with that consistency, letting you keep drivers in play longer, as well as getting you back a construct nitro mechanoid. So this will be a great max card that you'll definitely see inside of his decks. Next up is a set of 4, because we have Evos. Evo Recall, Evo Heart Drive, Evo Short Circuit, and Evo Speed Slip are all 0 cost, 0 block, blue, mechanologist instant equipment. They are their respective slots. They go on base, and they all have Arcane Barrier 1, which is finally some Evo AB. Of course, the problem, they are not bases, which means you can't play anything else on top of them. But they do all have a bonus effect. The Evo Recall, which is the headpiece, lets you put a mechanologist action from your banish zone on top of your deck. Evo Heart Drive is the chess piece that makes your next attack action cost 1 less to play. Evo Short Circuit does 1 damage to any target. This is guaranteed damage, which might be pretty useful in some situations. And which, of course, you can prevent it, but you can't like AB it. And then Evo Speed Slip is giving your next attack action you play this turn boost. So something without boost can get it. which I think most mech attacks do have boost. But some don't. Obviously, High Octane doesn't. I think these cards are all okay. You're only going to play them in... You're only going to play them in Teklovesen, though. And I don't think he'll play these. I guess they're AB. He will play them in his board for Wizards. But I still think that matchup's terrible. So, hey, hopefully you draw these before turn 2. Or he's just going to kill you anyway. Moving on to Ranger. Long Draw Half Gloves are a 1-block battle-worn Ranger arm. They have an instant to destroy it and put 2 cards from your hand or arsenal on the bottom of your deck to give your next arrow +4 this turn. This isn't super good. Riptide won't ever have cards in his arsenal since he has his Trench, and Trench is just his best chess piece. So you'll have to spend cards from your hand. So the only real Ranger I could see this being played in is Azalea. It lets Azalea clear her arsenal. She's a Tunic deck, so she won't be running Trench. So she can burn away her arsenal and a card from hand to give +4, clear out her arsenal. Could be pretty useful. I don't think it's as strong as Bullseye Bracers, but that would require some testing. But +4 is still pretty good. You can pump up your next arrow by 4, so the card you could put on the bottom would be a pump in theory. You're still getting that Bullseye Bracer plus the 1 pump. It does suck, though, that you're not loading an arrow like what Bullseye Bracer does, but you are clearing your arsenal if something does get stuck there. So, could be decent. Murky Water is a Riptide spec. It's a 2-cost, 6-power arrow. It is 3-block. If it has an aim counter, it gets +1 and Dominate. And when this hits, you can banish 3 face-down traps in your graveyard. You can banish 3 traps face down. It's worded a little weird because you don't have traps face down in your graveyard. But you banish 3 traps face down. Which I guess is worded fine, but still can be a little confusing. So you use 3 traps in your graveyard, banish them face down. And then if you do, you choose 1 at random, and it goes into your arsenal. So you do get a random trap back, but you still get a trap back. You do get a card back. You're not recurring your traps any other way. So even if you banish, and you do get to choose your traps, so, and they don't have to be different either. So if you need a Frailty trap right now, you can choose 3 Frailty traps, get 1 back guaranteed, which is real nice. It having an aim counter is a little niche because the main bow you'd use to do that is his bow that is Barbed Castaway, which isn't that good. Dreadbore is better, especially since even then Dreadbore will still have this come in for a 2 for 7. But the +1 and Dominate could end up happening at some point. I think people are going to be trying the Barbed Castaway alongside New Horizon and the Long Draw Half Glove in Riptide for like an aggro package that can recur some traps sometime. I think that could be a good idea. People will be trying out, but I just think this card's just normally good if you were playing Riptide. It's a popper, it's some trap recursion. You just play it. Kindle is the card that I said would be for like the whole class, but Kano is the only wizard, so it's for Kano. This is a 0-cost instant for wizard. If you have no cards in your hand, you draw a card, which is decent. You can place from your arsenal, get another card, pitch everything to Kano. That's pretty good. But it has a new keyword on it called Amp. Amp makes it so the next time you would do arcane damage this turn, you do that much +1. Pretty much, it's like your Metacarpus node or your Crucible. It's like that. Kindle lets you get a card back to pay for something else. mainly Kano, I guess, or play a card from your banish if you have blue on top, which is great. Kindle is here to be a 1 pump. You can think of this as sort of like a Cindering Foresight, but a little more restrictive, but a better payoff, I'd say. Because if you draw a blue, you're in a really good spot. But Cindering Foresight lets you see your top cards. This combined with Cindering Foresight could be really strong. But I think this card will definitely see play in Kano. There's no world where it doesn't, I think. So definitely pick this one up if you're a Wizard player. Dust in Stillwater Shrine is the Phi card everyone thought we were getting because people bought out Phoenix Forms. It's not a Phi card. It is Draconic, but it's the Dust. Everyone thought that this was a Phi card that they didn't give to anyone to reveal, but it turns out they didn't give it to anyone because no hero in the format could play it. Dusts are a card we've had in the past several sets. Did we have it on Heavy Hitters? I don't think we did, but we've had them every once in a while since the Draconic Dragons. There's one dragon from each region. This time we're in Mysteria with Mirgai as the dragon of the region, so we're getting the Dust for it. Is this Dust good? Yeah. Yeah, this Dust is really good. It's like Chrome Eyes. So I guess if Dromite ever becomes a deck again, or we get another Draconic Illusionist, you'll see it. So pick these up if you're a Dragons fan. Shadow Realm Horror is a Shadow Brute attack. It is 3 block, it costs 2, and it's red, and it is 6 power. As an additional cost, you banish 3 random cards from your graveyard. If 1 or more had 6 or more power, this gets +1. If it was 2 or more, this gets +3. And at 3 or more, you can play a card you banished this way. This card also has Blood Debt. This card's insane. If you banish 3 6s, which yes is hard to do, but not impossible, it happens all the time, you have a 2 for 7 with Go Again that drew you a card. This card is Dread Screamer on crack. Of course, for you to get even Go Again, you need 2 hits. But even if you just get 1 hit, it's a 2 for 7. And you need to get at least 1 hit to not die to Blood Debt. So you'll probably get 1. 2 is the average. Even the average is a 2 for 7 with Go Again. That's really strong. But that third effect of if you do hit, and the fact you get to choose which one you play, because it's just play a card banished this way, it's so strong. If you're playing Levia, pick these up. It will make your deck so much better. The final card we need to talk about, since we talked about Enigma New Moon in the last video, is going to be Eloquent Eulogy. This is a 1 cost for 4 with 3 block, with Runegate, the cheapest Runegate attack in the game, mind you. When the chain closes, if a hero lost health this turn, you create an Eloquence token. What's an Eloquence token? It's the one that gives a non-attack action Go Again. Good actually in Vinset, because you have cards like Funeral Moon. Hey, that gives you an action point back if you played it as an instant. If you play Read the Bones, Read the Runes. Read the Bones is a magic card. Read the Runes, a 0 for 3 rune chance. That'll get Go Again because of the Eloquence. If you play the one that makes an Eloquence, you still get an action point if you played it as an instant. This is an effect that I think Vinset definitely needed because she plays a lot of non-attack actions that don't natively have Go Again, mainly the Funeral Moon and the Read the Runes. So this can help you set up for really good turns, set up for double Runegate attacks, and the fact that this is only a 1 cost is great, since you can play it for 1 straight up or just off the 1 rune chant you made. you can have a turn where you banish this to Vincent, play like Shadow Puppetry, pay a life, have this come in for 5. If Shadow Puppetry hit, great. You get your card banished off the top. If it's another Rune Gate attack, you have an Eloquence token now. Since you paid a life to the Shadow Puppetry, you can close the chain to make it. Play a Read the Runes, play a bigger Rune Gate attack, and get some really good aggressive turns. This will definitely help the more aggressive Vincent decks out, opposed to the slower, more setup-based Vincent decks, which those haven't been performing because the format ended up being pretty fast and strong. Even with a deck like Victor, Victor ended up being a little disruptive for the deck. So Vincent didn't really have her time, but now we're going to see so much Ward. One Unpreventable is just going to come down like a hammer and destroy the whole board. It's Vincent's meta coming up, I think. And this card will be great if you want to play a more aggressive variant of Vincent, which I think could be very strong just on the back of this card. So with all of that, that's going to be the end of the video. Don't know how long this one was. I tried to go a little faster than last time, but it probably will still be over an hour, so sorry about that. Can't really rush these things, even though I try. I think this is probably one of the best sets they've made. I said that about Heavy Hitters, because I think Heavy Hitters is an exceptional set, but this set just feels really, really good as well. We'll have to see how the meta develops. I think it's 3 extremely strong new heroes coming out that fit generally very different playstyles. So I think we'll definitely see a huge meta shift with them. So with all that, I hope you all enjoyed the video. I hope you might have learned something. And I will see you in the next one. Have a good day, and goodbye.